Hey everyone! Thank you for joining us for the Microsoft Fabric FabCon Global Hackathon. My name is Anna. I'll be your producer for this session. I'm an event planner for Reactor, joining you from Redmond, Washington. Before we start, I do have some quick housekeeping. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, we ask that you please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. Keep an eye on that chat. We'll be dropping helpful links and checking for questions for our presenters to answer. Our session is being recorded. It will be available to view on demand right here on the Reactor channel. With that, I'd love to turn it over to our speakers for today. Thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Josh, and I'm joined by Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be back here with you, Josh. And I know what's in store for today, but I think everybody else was excited to hear about that as well. So where are we at in this journey today?
Yeah, it's been an interesting month of learning. We've had a lot of live streams. The last time we were here, we were kicking off the hackathon, and since then we've had our colleagues coming in here talking about the various capabilities, the various features in Fabric, and trying to ensure everyone has a successful hackathon. And today we're here to wrap up everything and ensure that you're set for success with the completion of the hackathon. So this is our last live stream today, and we're going to cover how you can submit your project, what happens next, so that we can help you put in the weeks of your hard work so that you can package your solution into a successful hackathon submission. So what's the agenda for today? We'll start by looking at what you're supposed to include in your submission, how and where to submit it. We'll also give you a few tips for your demo videos and the documentation. We'll do a review of the judging criteria in case you missed our first live stream, so that you just have an understanding of how the judging criteria looks like and also the prizes. We'll also talk about when the winner announcements will happen and how that's going to happen. And because, this is a learning hackathon, we'll also share with you some of the next steps. What do you do now that you've done, you've been learning, and maybe you want to engage with a vibrant community, what's the next? So those are some of the things that we're going to be covering today. But before we get started with our agenda, just a quick recap about this hackathon. This has been an 8-week virtual global data and AI hackathon focusing on Microsoft Fabric. It's been open to individuals and teams of up to 3 members. So you can hack solo, or you can join a team of 3 team members. And we have prizes worth up to $10,000 US. And we'll look at how all of these are divided across the various categories. And we also provide you with an opportunity to connect with a vibrant data and AI community. And for everyone that has been participating in the hackathon up to this moment, I'm almost certain you've engaged with our vibrant community over at Discord. For those who are asking questions, you're receiving new answers. And for those who are seeking teammates or seeking any kind of clarifications, that's the right place to be. So this has been running since September 22nd, and today on October 16th, we are on the last live stream. So we did the first kickoff on September 22nd with Paul. We were here, and we helped you get started, understand what the hackathon is, set the tone and pace for the hackathon. And we've had an amazing live streams happening each and every week. And for the weeks that we didn't have live streams, we had our office hours over at Discord. And so if you've missed any of these sessions, these are live on our Reactor YouTube channel. And I would really encourage you all to go and have a look at all of that. We've had a session in terms of how to integrate data with Microsoft Fabric into one lake. We've had a session on real-time intelligence, a session on databases in Fabric databases, and a session on Copilot, data agents, and AI inside of Microsoft Fabric. And what you notice with all of these sessions, they are really targeted to a particular category of the hackathon. So, for example, the bringing your data into one lake focuses on the open mirroring hackathon category. The second session focused on helping you be able to understand, real-time intelligence and build solutions for the real-time intelligence category. The October 6th session on databases focuses on the database category, and the the session on October 9th helps you with the AI and data agents category. So what you notice, all these live streams have been structured and tailored to ensure that you really, really have a successful hackathon. And for you to end up being the grand winner, you really have to build something really impressive, pick the learnings from all the last 4 sessions, and really go ahead and build an amazing project for submission. So assuming you're ready to submit your process, let's look at the submission process. Paul, do you mind helping us walk through how the submission process looks like? We're going to give a high level and then go into details into each of these steps.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say definitely step number 1, which we have shown here on the slide, the preparation of your project. This is the whole, you need to build something. So hopefully at this point, you've been thinking about, you've been working on, you've been building. I would even encourage for folks who maybe are just now hearing about the hackathon today, there's still time. There's absolutely still time to submit a compelling project in the next couple of weeks. So the first thing would be making sure that you have a viable solution, something that showcases what it is that you wanted to demonstrate in the applicable category that you're submitting your project into. And of course, providing that via some form of documentation. So we are asking that when you submit your projects, that you do so by providing a link to a GitHub repo that should have steps for reproducibility, the type of thing that would really help. Think about like an individual who has never worked with the tooling or built something like what you have, that they could really truly walk through it and fully understand how it was created. The second piece, I would say, is a little bit more fun. At this point, you've done the hard work, you've done the technical work of building something, you've done the documentation steps. Now you're ready to share it, tell the whole world. So at this point, this is where you would create a video demo showcasing your project, hopefully in action, and also providing any sort of like, you think of any like background information or say subject matter expertise that may be required to understand the value proposition of your solution. This is where you can cover that. And we're not asking for something very long here, just kind of brief, 3 to 5 minutes. And I wouldn't say that we're necessarily looking for the best production. What we really want to see here is something that tells us very clearly what the problem is that's being solved and really truly showcases that solution in action, solving the problem that should be described within. Now, once you have those ingredients, you've got a completed project, it's documented, it's stored somewhere up on GitHub, you've got a video that sort of demonstrates it in action. The next thing we would ask is to go back to the Hackathon GitHub repo, which we can get that link dropped here shortly, which is where you will go through the submission process for your project. Now, each submission we're asking should be unique, and we want it to be different than any of the other entries. So like if you're submitting multiple projects, there should be some sort of uniqueness between them if you happen to be doing that. If you have your single project, of course, you want to make sure that you're submitting that. And of course, aligning it to the appropriate category. And I believe Josh will show us exactly what that mechanism looks like.
Yeah. So now that we kind of have a high level overview, I think let's dive deep and kind of give you some best practices, or just help you package all of this together before you do your actual submission. And so the first step, as Paul mentioned, is you need to ensure that you finalize your project and the documentation. So a huge part of your submission is going to be your repository, your GitHub repository. And so this is where our judges are going to go and see how you've actually built your solution. And this is also going to be a resource for others who might be inspired by your work. So ensuring that you've really packaged your project here is very, very much important. So ensure that your repository structure is tidy and logical. And we'll just even show you an example of our past hackathons, how they actually look like. Ensure that you have a README that is well detailed. Think of the README as the front page to your project. So it should give an overview to what the project is all about. It should be able to highlight the problem you're solving, highlight the solution to the problem that you're solving, showcase the features and the components at a high level, and also include instructions in terms of how anyone else will be able to set up and reproduce your project. So if another developer or if a judge wanted really to try out your project, can they be able to do it from your README? Is it completely comprehensive? So that's the main question you need to answer with your README. Ensure that it's completely detailed. Everything that anyone needs to know in terms of how to set up and how to reproduce your solution is well detailed here. When you doing the documentation for your project on your README, ensure that you add screenshots or diagrams. If you have these flow diagrams in terms of how everything is coming together, maybe you have this medallion architecture, how data is flowing across all these different layers, try and add these diagrams or these screenshots just so that it's clear, and and how to reproduce this is also very clear. You can even add sample data if your data is not too large. That's also allowed. And also, optionally, but something really nice to have would be maybe integrate the CI/CD capabilities in Fabric and bring your artifacts directly on GitHub, and we can be able to see how everything is actually working on GitHub. It's an optional step, but really, really important. That would really, really enable us or anyone else to reproduce your solution. And finally, ensure you double check that your repo is accessible. So we really recommend that your repo is public so that, our judges have an easy time judging your project, but also other members in the community or anyone else who wants to learn more about the solution or get inspiration for your solution, they can easily access this. But in the event that your repo is not public, it's private, ensure that Paul and myself are added or have access to your repo. And we will add our usernames again on chat, but so that you can see that. But just ensure, and these instructions are also on the GitHub page, but ensure that you add both of us onto your private repos so that we can be able to judge your projects. Also ensure that the image links, if you have images inside of your README, ensure that the links are not broken and everything that you add on your README is completely accessible. Now, the other thing also to highlight when you're thinking about your project documentation is the scaling plan. During the submission, you're going to be required to attest the completion of the scaling plan. So ensure you complete the scaling plan. We still have 2 more weeks before the actual submission deadline. So please, if you've not completed the scaling plan, maybe you've been working on your project, it's a really good time for you to start working on your scaling plan because you're going to be required to do the attestation for thought. Then the second thing that you need to do is create a compelling video. And Paul did an awesome job giving us a high-level overview about the video. Now, when you think of the video, think of it as your project's elevator pitch. You have 3 to 5 minutes to impress the judges with a live demonstration of your work. And one of the things to remember, as we're going to look in our judging criteria, the video is going to count towards the final score, and it carries 25% worth of the 25% worth of the total score in judging. So here's how you need to ensure that your video counts. The first thing, ensure you keep it concise. We might receive a lot of projects, so ensure that our judges have an easy time. Do not make it too long. So keep it focused within the 3 to 5 minutes. So plan what exactly you want to showcase. You might want to highlight different parts of your project. Ensure you've talked about your problems, your problem well. You've defined your solution, and ensure that your solution is clear. The different features you're using from Fabric, those are clear, and structure it as a narrative. So think of maybe stating the problem or the opportunity that you've actually tackled. And then once you've identified the problem, hook the viewer with the why then are you going to build this? And then from there, dive deep into showing us the magic, how you actually solved this with Microsoft Fabric. Focus on the core features from Fabric that are powering your solution, that are powering your innovation. And ensure that this is clear so that our judges are able to accurately know where to place your project in. So if if you're using real time, ensure you really that comes out really, really clear. I'm using real time analytics here, and then so that is accurately categorized. And for some of you, the project might be big, so just show these snippets. You don't need to scroll through the entire line of the entire code blocks that you have. All that should be well documented. The video should really come in handy in terms of just really explaining what your actual solution.
To add to that, Josh, I think the key here is we're not looking for like a Hollywood movie production here. We're looking really for something that, as we're saying here, something that just showcases the project sort of in action, and demonstrates how it's, how it works. I've seen submissions in the past where they're fun and funny. That can get our attention, of course, but we're really looking at the substance of the solution. Just to add that in there. So I'm not discouraging people from doing Hollywood style productions, but I want those who, may not have the same means or camera equipment, like, don't feel like that's going to be a major differentiator when it comes to judging. It's going to really be something that we want to see the project in action and to the best of the ability, be able to go through it. And I think as we go through this, Josh and I will take a look at some of the previously submitted projects, some of the former winners, and it'll give you a really quick understanding, I think, of what we see as judges when we both look at the repos as well as the videos once we get to that. So just hang tight. We will give you some shining examples just shortly.
Awesome. And most importantly, as we wrap up this part, is that ensure that the video link that you submit is actually accessible. So whatever platform you use to upload your video, ensure that you mark it as unlisted or as public, because the last thing that you want is a judge clicking on your video link and it says access denied or the video is not found. So ensure that you actually double check that your video is as well accessible. Now, the third critical step is, just submitting it. So, and the submission for this is going to be via the GitHub issues, and the link to submit is here, aka.ms/FabCon Hack Project Submission. So if you go there, it directly opens a form on GitHub issues, and it's just supposed to ensure that you fill out all the details. So we're going to go through all these steps so that you can see what you actually need to fill out and submit. And as just to highlight, here are our usernames for GitHub. Ensure that you've added Paul and myself for any private repo so that we have access to that for judging, and ensure that you've completed the scaling plan. And the deadline for the hackathon submission is November 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So these are the most important things that you really need to look at. So
and let's real quick, November 3rd. Just want to be clear. We were really thoughtful about this. We know a lot of people want to put that finishing touch on the weekend. We know in the United States there's somewhat of a holiday at the end of the month, so we wanted to make absolutely sure that you have that time to put those final finesse and those details on. Give you the full weekend. So do keep in mind it'll be November 3rd. It will be the final date for those deliveries. So you'll have that full weekend. If you get it in beforehand, maybe you want to go, out for Halloween. If you're in a place that's celebrating that, you absolutely can. If you're going to stay in and work on those finishing pieces, I know I'm one of those sort of weekend warriors that likes to hack when it's quiet and there's no work going on. We've got you covered here. So just want to make sure that that date was absolutely picked for a reason, to make sure that you have the comfortability to deliver the very best project that you can with the time available.
Exactly. Awesome. So let's look at the submission process. We've talked about what you need to do, what you actually need to do the submission. So let's switch over and just see how the process actually looks like. All right. So the link that we shared for the submission, and you can be able to access it directly from the GitHub repo. I'm just going to zoom in these a little bit, just so that it's a little bit more clear. I can even do that. Yeah. So it's more clear. So you can see right here on where you can be able to submit your project. And so if I open this link, let me just open it on a new tab. It's going to launch the form that I actually need to do that. Oh, yeah, I need to be logged in. So let me bring a browser that is already logged in. And here we go. So I'm just going to zoom in as well. And I'm going to copy the link just so that I'm a little bit faster. Copy link, and let's use here. So aka.ms/FabCon Hack Project Submission. And so exactly this, you need to be signed in. So that's what was missing. And it's a very simple and straightforward form for you to complete. So you need to provide a quick project title for your project. So just an easy description in terms of what your project is. So just a quick project title. It doesn't need to be as detailed because you'll have to do your description later on the form. So just a one sentence, just like think of this as your project title for your project hackathon. And then the next thing, for the people who actually completed, for the person who actually registered, because the most important thing, you need to ensure that you are registered for the hackathon before you submit this project. So if you haven't registered, there is the link we provide here for the registration, aka.ms/FabCon register. You just need to go to this site and ensure that you actually register for the hackathon. So if you're working as a team, you need to delegate one representative to fill out this form for you. So it's a simple form as well, just basic details, first name, last name, your email, your company name, company size, and just hit submit. So you need to ensure that this is actually completed so that you're actually registered for the hackathon before you submit your project. And so
yeah, before you keep going, can we zoom in a little bit closer? I think folks might want to go a little deeper there.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go. Yes.
And these as well.
Folks can see those forms. Yeah, a little clearer. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. So for the representative, if you're working as a team of 3, you need to have a representative that actually does the registration. And we're going to need their first and last names so that we can cross-check that against the people who have actually registered for the hackathon. If you're hacking on this solo, you just need to provide, again, your first and last name as you submitted on the registration form so that we can be able to correlate the information from the GitHub issue that you open here and from the registration details that you actually provided during registration. Then the other thing, you need to attest the completion of the Fabric scaling plan. So you need to attest, have you completed? Yes or no? And sure, you have 2 weeks, as I mentioned. We have 2 weeks remaining. So if you've been spending the last 4 weeks hacking and building your solutions, you can use the spare time as well to complete your scaling, to complete the scaling plan. So you need to attest that and then provide a project pitch or a high-level overview description. So this doesn't need to be extremely detailed because you'll provide your project URL to the GitHub repo where we expect to find a README that is really, really robust and very detailed. But ensure you provide your project pitch or your project description, describe the project you've built, how you the problem you're solving, how you've actually built it, and the technologies from Microsoft that you've actually used. In this case, we want to see some Fabric features that you've used as well here. Then again, share a link to the project URL. Again, here we provide you with our usernames in case you don't have those. If it's private, ensure that Paul and myself are actually added to those or have access to those as well. Then a demo video URL. And as you can see, all these fields are actually required. And then we have a team members field. If you're working as a team, please provide their GitHub usernames, not their names, but rather just your GitHub usernames for everyone else who worked on this project. And then you have to attest here that you've actually completed the registration. We have to remind you, ensure you've registered. So check this box to actually ensure that you're registered for the hackathon, and then you can go ahead and create the issue, and that submits your hackathon project. Now, you can submit more than one project. So if you're working with a team, or if you're working on more than one project, you can just submit the first issue, then open the form again, submit your second issue. But the most important thing to remember, if you're submitting more than one hackathon project, ensure that each one of them is unique. Our judges are gonna ensure two projects submitted by the team, they are distinctly unique from each other. It's not the same project submitted twice. So that's it when it comes to the hackathon submission. It's as simple and straightforward as that. And I can see we already have 2 issues here. People are already beginning to submit their hackathon projects 2 weeks before. So that's really good. That's really good.
I was going to say too, Josh, since people are going to submit these via public issues on GitHub, it's not against the rules to take a look at what submissions look like. If you're seeing something, if you're getting ideas from folks, if you want to help people, I think I've seen sometimes in the past, sometimes our community will inform people that their video link is not working and that sort of thing. So you absolutely can take some inspiration from these things, but what I would really encourage is if you built something, we definitely want you to have that confidence in your own submission, to be proud of what you built, and at the same time, if you just see a little, somebody's maybe added emojis to their title, that sort of thing, all of that is fair game here. We're going to be looking at the substance stuff. So please, don't compare yourself. I think what I'm really trying to say here is like, if you want to make sure that you're following the right steps and doing everything, I think the form really guides you through that, the proper attestations. I would even say, if you've done a really good GitHub repo for your project, usually copying out that introductory paragraph will serve as the description point here. So it shouldn't be a whole lot of rework. It should be a pretty quick process going through this. But do know this is literally where, like Josh and I and the other judges, we're going to come to this list of issues. And that is going to be the artifacts and the criteria that we look through and consider in the judging process.
Exactly. And while we are here talking about submission, Paul, I see some few questions coming in on chat. And one person is asking, can individuals submit?
I would say the majority of folks are likely going to be individuals, or folks who are teams, perhaps students at universities, could be from anywhere. We do tend to see folks from companies occasionally will submit projects as well. I think I'm going to kind of invert the question here and give you a quick yes, absolutely, individuals can submit. Of course, if you're submitting on behalf of a company, please don't send over a data set or showcase something that might be revealing or something that your company would want you sharing. But if you need to go through with, say, like a synthetic data set or something like that, that's absolutely fine. We've seen that before. But yes, absolutely. I'd say the vast majority of folks who participate in these hackathons are going to be doing so under personal accounts, possibly as individuals or teams of individuals, may have met through our Discord channels, those sorts of things. And absolutely, that is likely what we will expect the majority of the submissions to come through as.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think the reason that question is coming is from the registration page, and it mentions company name. So if you're not part of a company, you can just indicate that here as well.
Yeah, you can put an NA there for not applicable, or if you're enrolled as a student, you can mention your university or mention that you're a student, that sort of thing. I think the main thing there was to put the best answer that you can here. This is not going to impact the judging ability. We're really just using this as the registration mechanism. But again, we're going to be literally judging based off of, just to reiterate what Josh had mentioned, the first name and last name that was used in this form. We went to see that same first name and last name used in the GitHub issue when you open that up. That will allow us to marry that to that registration. And honestly, I know I'm going behind the scenes a little bit saying this, but that's how we're going to get the prizes awarded to the individuals who do end up as winners. So it is kind of important in that particular aspect. But thank you for pointing out that distinction, and I can see that being a point of confusion for folks. So yeah, don't trip up there on that field. It's not going to make or break you.
Exactly. Awesome. And there's a question coming whether Microsoft Free Trial provides enough features to complete this hackathon. Exactly, it does. Especially for most of the hackathon categories, you can use your free trial to actually compete in the hackathon. In our past hackathons, some of the winning teams actually used free trials. So yes, you can be able to use the free trial and compete in the hackathon. Some particular features, you actually need to use a paid capacity, and we've provided accurate instructions in terms of how you can be able to set these up directly from our GitHub repo. It's very clear, it's very distinct in terms of how you can be able to do that. But for most of the other thing, for most of the categories, you can be able to compete and win using the free trial offered by Microsoft Fabric.
And Josh, is it fair to say that the main difference between what you get in the paid capacity obviously is more horsepower, but like aside from that, it's really some of the baked AI features. There may be some that aren't available in the free trial that you do have, like for example, some of the Copilot accessibility. Like just to be really clear, what would be the advantage someone might have if they're using a paid versus a trial?
Yeah, I think the main advantage is things like data agents, some of the AI capabilities, but most of the other basic things, like you wanna and we're gonna come to the categories. You wanna focus on data open mirroring. You wanna focus on that's on data integration. You can do that using the free trial. For some of most of the real-time intelligence, the workload is already in your free trial. So most of the features that you might miss out on, those will be most of the AI features inside of Fabric, things like the data agents, the Copilot. But We have provided instructions on the GitHub repo. We've provided very clear instructions. If you go on the repo and you go to AI Act, no, you go to create fabric capacity. If you go to the fabric capacity and you want to have this sort of paid experience with a fabric capacity, you can set up an Azure trial and then use the Azure trial, the subscription from the Azure trial to create a fabric capacity, and that gives you most of the.
So you're saying like use the Azure trial to create a paid capacity that you won't have to pay for because it's part of the Azure trial experience. Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
So just the workaround for some folks, you know, and also I've seen this too for folks who just can't activate the free trial for whatever reason in Fabric. I've seen them use this as a workaround as well. So both of those are definitely valid. I think the thing you'd want to certainly keep in mind is trials do have time limits. So you want to make sure that you create that GitHub repository and that documentation and that video recording while you have access to those resources. That is probably the most important thing if you do fall into this situation.
Exactly. And when you set up the trial, just to mention, ensure that you delete or you delete those resources and you cancel the trial or you cancel that at the end. And we've provided detailed instructions right here on the GitHub page for how to set up and also how to cancel or rather deprovision everything at the end of it all. So just ensure that you look at this resource. It has everything that you actually need for you to have a very successful hackathon. Right. Now we've talked about the submission process. We've seen what you actually need to submit. Let's take a look at some of the winners from the previous years, and just to kind of give you a gist in terms of how, what we are looking at and what we are expecting. So let's start with our most recent hackathon. So the most recent hackathon we actually ran earlier this year. This was the Microsoft Data and AI Kenya Hack, and we had some amazing projects submitted, and we're just going to open some of these. So like the overall winning project was a RAG-powered virtual assistant for the higher education. And one of the things you're going to note when I open this repo, it's very documented. Remember me mentioning the README?
Repo, yeah, it's like they've gone above and beyond here. I'm not saying everyone has to do this, but look at that table of contents. I memean, like we can really get into what was going on here, right?
Exactly. And when I mentioned the README is your front end or your front page for your project, this is exactly how it looks like. They've really structured everything well. Beginning, if you check out the repo, you see how it's very structured. Their notebook, the video demos, their PDF documents. I think these are the data sets they actually used. Their KQL queries. Everything is really well detailed or well arranged, and then the README is really well structured. And as Paul mentioned, when you do a good README, you can easily copy like this first paragraph and take it over as your project description when you're doing your submission. So when you really package your repo very well, you can just pick most of the pieces directly from here and go and put them over to your project submission. So this is one of the good examples, and you can see they've added the images in terms of how everything flows. And so when a judge is going through this, they really understand what problem am I solving. And you can see, for example, this team is solving a really niche problem in Kenya, but judges who are based in other countries are able to actually understand what are they actually solving. So you can see it really goes ahead and explains everything and how they actually went ahead and built it. Paul, do you have anything else to add?
Just a few things. I think that especially for folks that this might be your first repo on GitHub that you're ever creating. I've always looked at this as a rite of passage. Whenever you create like something that stands on its own, can be shared and easily understood. The beauty about this is, in the small viewpoint of us as judges, we can easily and clearly see what you have done and how you did it. So that makes judging a lot more easy for us. We don't have to go figure out how this worked or guess how it worked. We know up front. But I think the bigger benefit is that these types of repos really serve the community for Fabric users out at large, where they might be wanting to do something, either solving a similar problem, using a similar technology stack, and they can jump into this and they can understand it. And I'd say the third, and this is this is something you might not notice if it's your first time doing these repos. Sometimes these repos catch interest of others, and it turns into opportunities. I'll just kind of leave it at that. But when you really put your work out there, and I've seen the gamut. This is absolutely real. I've seen people get contacted by companies asking them to implement things that they've seen them work on in GitHub. I've seen people utilize these in their resumes when applying for jobs. I've seen people sometimes get, called into some, podcast style thing where they talk and present on their project. There's a lot of angles that these things can go from once you put it out there. And I think that's one of the intrinsic values of this hackathon, especially for people who may have never used GitHub to share a project before, is just the kind of intrinsic benefits that can come from really putting it out there. And honestly, that's really the thing I think as technologists that we really find inspiring is you share the knowledge with others. Others are able to build and iterate on top of those things. And that's really the true spirit of the hackathon here. So just some things to keep in mind there. And, if it is your first time doing it, I would definitely say be excited, because a lot of times these things lead to really interesting outcomes when you put that code out there for others to peruse.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks so much for that. Yeah. And someone is asking for the link to the other projects. I think those will be coming on the chat, but on the GitHub repo, we have a link to all of those previous winning hackathons, and really would encourage you, before you start, putting everything together, go ahead and take a look, see how they packaged their projects, see how they did their videos. And that is really going to help you understand how to better do this yourself as you're doing your actual projects. Right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I would zero in on this again, Josh. I know you just said it, and I'm just going to say it again so it sticks here. Take a look at the Get Ready to Build section where Josh has the previous winning solutions, because I want to say each of those blog posts has not only the winners, but it has 10 some odd honorable mentions. And this is the thing I really want to put out there. Look, the goal of the hackathon, it's great if you end up a winner. It's great if you end up an honorable mention, right? But I think the really thing that I find really inspiring by these is the amount and the quality of the types of submissions that we get. It becomes inspiring. In fact, a lot of times those particular write-ups that we produce about the winners generate a lot of interest. And if I had to guess why, it's because people are going there for inspiration. So definitely want to say, like, if you are doing your best in terms of work, in terms of what you're submitting, I'd say there's a really high chance that it would likely end up in the future write-up for this hackathon. And of course, we don't draw it at a number limit. We kind of pick the ones that we really think are stand out and put those in there. So if you're contributing something to this hackathon that has high effort, high quality, expect that we'll likely pick this up for some sort of replay, either as a winner or as something that ends up on this blogs. And again, that's just more, glory, ability to share that work, get the name out there, share your project and that sort of thing. We want to help with that. And it's one of the things that I know when I was used to compete in hackathons myself, I used to always be excited about, looking at, well, who did win this? Or what exactly did they do? And like, how was it different than what I did? How could that help me prepare for another hackathon? Or, look at this idea. Maybe I could go back to my project and add this thing to it and make it that much more cooler. So it doesn't just stop at the end of the hackathon. I think true passion projects that are created by folks who really want to drive innovation, they're going to build something that they likely will stick with. They may go back to, and they may get inspired after the fact to make it even better.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. Good. Now that we've looked at how to submit, and we've shown you some where to get inspiration, I'm going to go back to my slides because I want us to talk about the judging criteria. And I know we talked about this previously, but I really need to go ahead and emphasize this again. Our judging criteria, it's going to be equally weighted across these criterions. So the first one is ensure that your project aligns to at least one of the hackathon categories. And I will be coming to what each of these hackathon categories are, but ensure it fits to either one or more of the 5 official categories. Then the other one is ensure that your solution is original, it's relevant, it's actually solving real-world problems. And if you go to those projects from the previous years, you can be able to see this. You can be able to see how unique each one of these projects were and how they were solving a particular problem with particular features in Fabric. Ensure that as well. You're not just solving a problem with any other technologies, but you're really aligned with using Microsoft Fabric to actually solve this particular problem. We've really emphasized about documentation and reproducibility, and also the video demonstration. The same tips that we've shared, just ensure that you put effort into documenting your projects well and putting together your video, because these two, actually just documentation and video, they carry half. They're gonna count towards half of your score, of your hackathon score. Then, what are our hackathon categories? We have 5 hackathon categories. The first one is the best AI application built with Microsoft Fabric. So, this could be an application that uses Fabric's advanced AI capabilities, like maybe data agents, integration with AI Foundry, integration with Copilot Studio. It could be, building RAG applications inside of Microsoft Fabric using maybe the event house. It could be building custom ML models trained inside of Microsoft Fabric. So here it's just the best AI application built with Microsoft Fabric. Then the second one is the best use of real-time intelligence. So here you're creating systems that can be able to ingest, monitor, and act on data on real time. On real time. So here a solution can connect to live data sources, like event hubs, Kafka, and then
data, tweets, that sorts of things.
Exactly. And then bringing that data, act, and even possibly act on top of that data, using tools like Activator. So like here, judges will be looking at, how are you connecting to your external real-time data sources, that integration, how you're leveraging the real-time capabilities inside of Microsoft Fabric to ingest, transform, and even act on top of that data, and even maybe possibly build a real-time dashboards using that data. The third one is best use of AI features in Microsoft Fabric. We have tons of AI features inside of Microsoft Fabric, and really here we just want to see how can you use these AI features instead of Microsoft Fabric to drive even productivity. Like how can you use Copilot to work faster? How can you use AI functions to speed up your work? So here really we're seeing the main difference, and I've seen this asked before, the main difference between category 1 and category 3. Category 3 is, think of it as how can I be more productive when I'm using these AI features, when I'm using data agents, when I'm using AI functions, when I'm using AI shortcut transforms, how am I more productive? And so you really need to show that in your video documentation in terms of like, how much more productive you are using Copilot to create your dashboards, using Copilot, for any of the use cases inside of Microsoft Fabric. Then the best analytic solutions with either Fabric databases and Azure databases. And someone might ask, why Azure databases? You can bring data into Fabric from Azure databases using, for example, Azure SQL. You can bring that data, through mirroring and all. So the best analytics solution using Fabric databases, this could be Fabric SQL database in Fabric, or the Cosmos DB in Fabric. And the last one is the best use of open mirroring. So here is being able to create, being able to leverage open mirroring, which was just announced earlier this year, to build a complete solution that can be able to replicate your external data source and bring that data into Microsoft Fabric. So these are our 5 main categories, and ensure that your project, the project you actually submit, actually aligns with one of these hackathon categories. And as we wrap up, Paul, do you mind taking us through the actual prizes?
Yeah, sure. So for best AI application, that's going to be $1,500. Kind of just in the instance of time, we want to make sure that we get through the rest of these. So I won't repeat what you've said there, Josh. But this is, of course, an AI application, something that uses Fabric's potentially their AI capabilities. Could also be doing things like building a retrieval augmented generation app, utilizing Event House as a vector store. There's a lot of ways that you could actually be submitting into one category. And we might actually also see it in this category. I could certainly see a lot of crossover with this particular one. Going to the next one, best use of real-time intelligence. This is literally just acting on data that's in flight, real-time data that's in motion, in movement. And that's using any of the available features and functionalities that are part of real-time intelligence in Fabric. And again, another $1,500 USD award there. And all of these include that opportunity to be featured in a later Microsoft blog post. We may even reach out. We might want to interview you about it, to be determined. Best use of AI features. These are a little bit different because when we say the features, this is kind of the smaller intersection of specifically Copilot, data agents, AI functions, AI shortcut transforms, and standalone Copilot. Again, $1,500 with this one. I could see a lot of crossover if you could build something here that might look like Category 1. I wouldn't be super confused by that, but you'll know if you're using one of those technologies, whether it needs to be submitted here or otherwise. Going on to the next one, we have the best solution with Azure or Fabric databases. This is just making sure that you're leveraging operational databases. For example, things like Azure Cosmos DB, Azure SQL, Azure Database for Postgres, or you're maybe using the in-Fabric offerings of things like Cosmos or SQL in Fabric. These would just be things where you're leveraging those specific types of databases. I've seen a lot of interesting solutions here, doing like monitoring across, Hive or clusters of databases in the past. But basically, if you're using a database, you're potentially in the running for this category. Going to the next one, the best use of open mirroring. This is a specific functionality that utilizes open mirroring, which also could leverage databases, but means that you're employing that open mirroring feature in order to get that data into Fabric. What's really interesting about this one is technically open mirroring could be adapted to databases that aren't officially supported in Fabric. You could be creating the integration or the connector for that. And this is absolutely, I think, a ground where I think we're going to see some interesting submissions come through. And will lead me to, I'm going to answer this question before we get to the last one there, Josh. One of the LinkedIn users has asked, which hackathon category receives the fewest submissions? It is often a strategy to compete in a less crowded category. We don't know because a lot of these categories are new. We've had similar types of categories in the past, but I will tell you, if there is one that I think stands out amongst the rest, where I think if you were doing a real-time solution, it's very likely it's going to have some AI components. So real-time very easily could also drop into category 1, could drop into category 3. Shoot, if you're using a database in Fabric alongside that, it could be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for that reason, I'm going to say best use of open mirroring, I think, is going to be the specific one in this hackathon that we're going to see people are going to have to truly be targeting this one. I don't think you can accidentally end up in this category. I think you have to literally be picking it and having an idea for it. And again, I've seen a lot of submissions in the past where people will try to go into all of our categories. And I love those kinds of submissions, especially when they're focused and they make sense. So if this is an area and you do have an all-encompassing solution that's maybe checking categories 1 through 4, I'd like to see, can you bolt on open mirroring in some aspect to make it even better? Now, of course, the thing that's most important is the problem you're solving. So don't throw a technology into the stack just to check the box. But if it's relevant and it makes sense, absolutely encourage that.
Exactly. And just to throw in something, if you can easily target the use of AI features by just using AI features as you're building. It doesn't need to be like you're focused on the AI category. You could be using open mirroring. You could be doing real time, but you use the AI
Copilot to write your open mirroring connector. Could be
exactly.
Exactly.
So you exactly. So as you're using Copilot, you might end up be targeting to more than one category, and that's a good thing, right? So and the last one, the grand prize, Paul.
So this is the best of the best. We're literally just going to be picking one that stands out to us. I would say it's likely going to be something that we really want to talk about or solves an absolutely legitimate problem that many people are facing. Is going to be the thing that lands in here. Honestly, it's going to be subjective for us as the judges, which one we pick. And very well could have been submitted into any category, but we will grant it this grand prize status because of just whatever the problem is that it solves. So it's kind of like, I'd go beyond just saying it's the judge's favorite pick. I'd say it's going to be one that really, truly stands out. It's going to have a great video behind it. It's going to have great documentation. It's going to solve a really great problem. And for whatever reason, when we look at it across all of the submissions, we pick it as our absolute favorite, which I assure you will not be an easy decision to make. There are usually multiples that we consider here, and we have to go into like drawing straws and having a blind vote at the end in order to actually pick one. So I will mention here, it's usually not an obvious one for us. It's one that we have to pick amongst quite a few. And on that note, to Sam's question here, that came across on YouTube, I could see a lot of overlaps, and one solution could touch most of them. How will the solution be allocated? I will be very transparent here and say we try to get a great, how can I say, showcase of winners in their respective category. So we may see something that, absolutely may have even been submitted. The user may have said, like, I'm going to submit this into best use of AI features, but it happens to use real-time intelligence. And we would say, you know what? I know that the person submitted into this category, but we actually think it's a standout example of this. It's hard for us to really make this distinction up front because, to be quite honest, it has to deal with the variety of submissions that we do get at the end of the day. So if we find out that everybody submitted into open mirroring because they tuned into this call and they decided that would be the lowest hanging fruit or opportunity to win, that could turn things on its head, where we may have to look at other solutions in order to prompt them into other categories. But at the end of the day, we will make sure that your solution does meet the criteria of the category. If we pick a winner there, but we also really loved it and think that it fits in another category, if it truly stands out, you may end up winning in a category outside of what you intended to be submitting into. That can absolutely happen. It has happened in the past. It just depends. But we kind of asked you to pick your favorite because that allows us to align our focus when we're doing the judging. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a strategy to that because we will, as judges, sift out and put it in the appropriate category that we feel deserves to win in. But that is going to be respective amongst the submissions we receive. So I can't tell you. It depends what's in our basket of options when we go look through them. So,
all right.
Another question from LinkedIn. Do solutions need to be in a public repository, or can we have them in a private repository and showcase only the solution? You can absolutely submit in a private repository. We've seen this happen. We've seen winners come out from doing this. The thing we will ask you to do is to invite Josh and myself as reviewers. I think, Josh, you gave our usernames for GitHub on a previous slide. So it's user Toolbox and Jay Cardiff right here that you'll see if it is private. However, if you do end up winning and we want to write about it, we may come back to you and ask you, hey, are there some tweaks that you could maybe make to make this public? It's not going to necessarily be a requirement, but we'll definitely come to you with that suggestion. Like maybe you didn't have enough time to remove like the company data that you were working with, but you wanted us to consider it for judging. We understand that, but before we would ever make it public, we would make sure that you've done the due diligence to go back over your code base and make it that way. So the answer is you absolutely can submit private. Do not be surprised if we ask you, hey, can we make some changes to this to make it public? But that's not going to determine whether or not you're a winner. We will absolutely judge it based on the content contained within that repo, whether it is public or private.
Exactly. Awesome. Right. Now we wrap up. You see, we're almost on top of time. So what are the next steps after this call? The most important thing is for you to submit your hackathon project. So head over to aka.ms/FabCon Hack project submission and ensure you submit your project. Ensure you're registered before submitting your project and submit early. Please do not wait until November 3rd. Submit early. If you do so, you can easily go inside there, make changes if need be. So please start working towards submitting your project. The other thing to highlight, please connect with the members of the community, members of the Fabric community at aka.ms/Fabric community. Here you can be able to ask questions, learn more about Fabric. There is even an ideas page where you can be able to see some of the community suggested ideas, some of the and votes on some of those. So please go ahead, check out the Fabric community, and also our winners are going to be announced on the Fabric community blog. So please, that's also a good resource. The other thing is the FabCon Hack Discord channel. So after this hackathon, we're still gonna keep our Fabric hackathon, our Fabric community on Discord. We actually right now have a dedicated Fabric channel inside of Discord. So easily after this hackathon, this can be a good place to offboard, to continue interacting with the community. We're seeing questions coming in around Fabric. So it's evolving to be a community that really is, interacting around data and AI. And so the Azure AI Foundry Discord server should be a good resource as well to offboard after this hackathon. And that's it. Yeah, that's a wrap for us with the live stream for this hackathon. And just to mention, next week, find me on Discord on Monday and on Thursday, same time for an office hour. So in case you have any questions, please come hang out with me on Discord so that I can answer some of your questions as well in case you have any questions, and also just share anything else that might come. So hopefully to interact with you all on Discord next week on Monday and on Thursday. Paul, do you have any closing words?
I just want to reiterate what you said. Sanjeev here from YouTube has asked, please give access to free access for Fabric. We've given instructions in the repo. If you need help with that, come see Josh in the Discord next week. We'll get you set up there. The last thing I would just say here is, look, even if you haven't started on your project yet, there's ample time from now to the end of this hackathon to start something and complete something and get it across the line. Who knows, you might be a winner. For folks who've been working hard throughout the start of this, the kickoff of this hackathon, we're excited about getting to see what you've created. I just want to mention to you, like for us judges, it is seriously, I guess the best metaphor I can use, it's like Christmas or a birthday, opening tons of presents and seeing all the great things that folks have created. So yeah, you've got days. Sanjeev, it mentions that the trial lasts only 60 days. I see the laugh emojis there, but I will say 60 days, this hackathon will be over before that. So you will absolutely have ample time if you kick up that trial today. And then I see finally, LinkedIn users ask us, how often do these hackathons happen? Well, we've kind of been putting them on or around our FabCon events. What a great question as I wear this shirt. Because I would say, but we don't have the details yet, but I would say you can pretty much bet that we will be doing something for the next FabCon Atlanta event that will be coming up next year. So either something that's going to be in the run-up ahead of it, something during it, something after. I assure you we will be doing this again. And we tend to do these about twice a year. Could we do them more often? Let us know if you, the community, wants more of this and want to be competing more often. That's really where it comes. If we've got the demand and the interest from the community to do more of these, we'd love to deliver as many as y'all are asking for.
Yep. All right. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you all next week on Discord.
Awesome. Cheers, everyone, and good luck.
Thank you all for joining, and thanks again to our speakers. This session is a part of a series. To register for future shows and watch past episodes on demand, you can follow the link on the screen or in the chat. We're always looking to improve our sessions and your experience. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear what you have to say. You can find that link on the screen or in the chat. And we'll see you at the next one.